Well, hello there everybody, it's 2026. Hi. It's the first video of the year from me, other than the live streams I've been posting, but anyway, those don't count. I wanted to take a break from doing my analysis videos and just do some speed draw videos where I tell you some stories. So I wanted to start off with something that happened last year. But before we get into that, you're probably wondering what you're looking at on the screen. This is me redrawing an old art piece of mine of Chrysalis from My Little Ponies. So what you're seeing me is tracing over an old piece of my own artwork and making a new sticker design for HarmonyCon 2026. So this is what we're working on in the video, so enjoy that. I want to talk about, I travel a lot for my work and stuff, and so I went home to Scotland. For those that don't know, I immigrated to America in 2021 and I wanted to go home for Christmas last year. And I hadn't been home for 2 years, so I was very excited for going home. And I went home for Christmas, so I've never travelled home to Scotland from the USA in the winter, and never will again after this experience. No, I'm kidding. Probably will try again, but so we had a bit of an adventure. So travelling there from the USA to the UK, just to give you an idea of how much travel is actually involved, is I live in North Carolina. So you're flying from Charlotte in North Carolina to London, which is a 7-hour flight. And then you have another flight from London to Inverness Airport, which is the closest airport to where my parents live in Scotland. To give you an idea, Inverness is not far from Loch Ness. Anyway, so altogether it takes, depending on how long your layover is in London, it can take well over 24 hours to travel home, to travel from the UK, from the USA to the UK, depending on where you're going. So traveling home, like nothing major happened. It was a bit of an uncomfortable flight because the guy next to me insisted on spreading his legs as much as he could into my space, so that was uncomfortable. And you know, he pretended he was sleeping most of the time as well, so I was like, okay, this is, I'm not gonna pick a fight with this, so whatever. I just fell asleep for most of the flight anyway. And then I had about a 7-hour layover in London for traveling home, and that's very normal because the American flight is usually an overnight flight, and then the flight to Inverness is usually like later in the day, so I'm very used to that. That's expected. So I just hung out in London Heathrow terminal for 7 hours, and you know, it's not fun. I will not recommend. But anyway, being home for Christmas was amazing, catching up with family and friends and meeting my godchild for the first time, which was incredible. So I was able to spend some time with friends I hadn't seen for a while since I moved, and it was just really cool being home. And you don't appreciate home until you leave it, you know, and spending much needed time with my mum and dad and visiting my sister's headstone and all of the stuff I wanted to do while I was home, hanging out with my aunt and uncle, you know, things like that. So I was supposed to fly home after 3 weeks of being there, and we had some very bad snowfall happen pretty much overnight, 2 days before my flight back to the US was meant to happen. This was record-breaking snowfall, guys. This was over 2 feet worth of snowfall. And if you know anything about snow, you know that usually when there's heavy snowfall very suddenly, that can cause travel chaos. So, in spite of the fact that Scotland is a very hardy country, it's a very cold country, and often are very well prepared for snow, when it comes to that much heavy snowfall, they will bring the snow barriers down on the roads, they will close all the rails so no trains can go, so no cars, trucks, buses, etc. can go on the roads, and it also means that all flights are suspended. So therefore the airports I was planning on flying out of were suspended, they were closed. So I received an email 2 days before my flight from Scotland to London to tell me to change my travel plans because of adverse weather conditions. So I'm like, okay, I can do that. That's no problem. I call British Airways. And British Airways is owned by the same company that owns American Airlines. And those are the two airlines I use to travel when I'm traveling internationally. So I call British Airways. I call them and tell them that I need to change my flights for adverse weather conditions. And they said, oh, we can't actually change your flight plans because you booked your flights with American Airlines. I'm like, oh, of course I did. Okay. So I call American Airlines. Guess what American Airlines do? They tell me to call British Airways because the flight that is being affected by the adverse weather is not an American Airlines flight, it's a British Airways flight. So I'm like, well, I just called them and they said to call you. And they're like, oh, well, okay, so why don't you go into your itinerary and click change trip? And you should be able to change it that way. And I'm like, I tried doing that and it wouldn't let me do that, which is why I'm calling. And they're like, okay, I don't know if there's anything we can do for you at this point. So in my brain, I'm like, okay, it sounds like the thing I have to do is cancel my flights and then rebook them. So I'm like, I should be able to do that without any issues because the flights were booked on flight points. However, it wasn't me that booked them, it was my mother-in-law, and my mother-in-law lives in North Carolina, and she does not use social media. The only way that I could contact her would be either to call her, which I'm not going to do because that's going to cost an arm and a leg, but then I remembered she uses Instagram, so I messaged her on Instagram hoping and praying that she will see it, and luckily she did. And so I was talking to her while she was in a call with American Airlines telling them about how we need to change my travel plans because of adverse weather conditions. Now, the rep that she had on the other end either needs to be slapped or needs to be fired, because this woman said that, oh, according to my screen, there is no adverse weather, the flights have not been suspended, and the airport is open. And I'm like, are you high? There is 2 foot weather of snow. The snow barriers are down, so no cars, buses, trucks, etc. can go on the roads. The trains are almost also not running. And I'm literally looking at the site for Aberdeen Airport right now, and all flights are suspended. But she was insisting that according to the stuff that was on her screen, everything was open. And so I was sending my mother-in-law the article showing the weather with the 2 foot worth of snow, which is a record-breaking amount of snow to fall. We haven't seen this amount of snow in 14 years. So I'm like, even if the airport was open, there's no way for me to get there. I need to change my flights. And she was insisting that there was nothing that she could do. I'm like, okay, what if you change the booking to fly from Inverness Airport to London instead? And she said, oh, that will be perfectly fine. Guys, that airport was suspended as well. So I'm like, why was one airport not okay and the other one was? That didn't make any sense. And then she said, because your flights were booked via flight points, we can't just change your travel plans. We have to cancel the trip, reimburse the flight points, and then rebook the journey. So we're like, okay, let's do that. So then this rep gave us, she was trying to find a way for me to get home. And so the first option she gave us was a flight from Inverness Airport to London Airport, which is fine, and then to Toronto, and then to Charlotte. with a 7-hour layover in Toronto, by the way. And a 7-hour layover in London. Which would mean it would take me almost 3 days to get home. More to the point, that would mean that I would be going through immigration and customs in Canada. I'm not traveling as a tourist, I'm traveling as an American citizen. because I live in America now. So I would land in Toronto and they would just send me back to London. So that would not work for me. So she said, this is all being reiterated to me via my mother-in-law, by the way. She's being the middleman right now. So she said, oh, okay, I see that won't work for you. Let's see what else we can get. And I'm like, yeah! Oh my god, why? So then finally, eventually, she comes back with a trip saying, Inverness to London, then London to Charlotte. But there's a 14-hour layover in London. And I'm like, I'll take that over being 7 hours in London, then 7 hours in Toronto, and then the possibility of probably being sent back to London any day. That's fine, I'll do that. So, oh my god. So we finally get it all sorted out. It's all booked, ready to go. So I'm leaving Scotland a week later than intended. So I've got another week in Scotland, which is perfectly fine. I was safe. I was at my parents' house. So, you know, I wasn't stuck in the middle of nowhere or anything like some people were. I was perfectly safe. But guys, it gets worse. It gets so much worse. So here, picture this. I am packing. And the case that I have been using since 2014, some of you guys may have seen it. I used this case that has got pictures printed on the actual case of various capital cities. And this is admittedly a rather fancy case that I spent a lot of money on back in the day when I first started vending. It's a big ass case because I use it for like holding stock while I'm traveling or whatever, but this time I was just using it for a general trip home. So I'm packing stuff, and I'm also taking extra stuff home from my parents' house because I still had stuff there. And it takes me about 2 hours to pack because like I'm checking the weight allowance and like prioritizing what I'm taking, what I'm not taking. So it takes a few different attempts. So then we finally get all the stuff packed, and I lift the case up to upright position, and then I noticed this massive split between the pull handle and the corner of the case. I mean, you can see the inner lining of the case. It was that bad. So then I start panicking. I leave for the airport in 2 hours and my case is broken. I cannot travel with this. This will not survive TSA agents throwing it around between two flights. So I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? I do not have the money to buy a new case right now. So luckily, my mom and dad are wonderful people, and my dad said, hey, let's go to the store right now. We'll buy you a new case. We'll pay for it. And I'm like, okay, thank God. So we go to the store, we find a really nice brand new case. It needs stickers. I will post pictures of it right here. Here we go. New case. So then I repack everything. And then we finally get to the airport and I go on my flight. I say my goodbyes and I get on my flight from Inverness to London. That went without a hitch. But guys, it gets worse. It gets so much worse. So we arrive, it's an evening flight, we arrive at 9:30. I am very aware that the buses that run between the terminals stop running at 10 p.m. So I'm getting really nervous. Now, so I get off my flight eventually, and I don't have to collect my luggage because it's going straight to my final destination. I don't have to worry about that. But I get a bit turned around when I get off my flight. And I've changed terminals before, I know what to do. You just hop on the bus and it will take you to the next terminal you need to go to. But I missed the bus. So I asked the TSA agents, what do you recommend I do? I need to get to Terminal 5 and I have a flight tomorrow. And they're like, okay, I'm assuming you don't have an overnight stay booked anywhere. I'm like, no, I don't. They're like, okay, so here's what you can do. There plenty of people stay over in the terminals. It's perfectly safe for you to do that. So, but I will tell you now that if you go to Terminal 5, no places will be open for food. I'm assuming you'll need something to eat. And I'm like, yes. So they're like, right, stay here in Terminal 3 because there's stores open till midnight. So you can grab something to eat. And then you can either stay over in Terminal 3 or you can take the trains because the trains are still running. You can take the train to go to Terminal 5 after you get something to eat. Yeah, so I did that. And I do not recommend anybody staying over in an airport terminal, ever, because it was so uncomfortable and loud. But at least I was safe, you know? It was safe. But guys, it gets worse. Okay, so after the most uncomfortable night's sleep I've had in a long time, I hop on the train to go to the next terminal. And then I grab some breakfast, and then I check where my flight gate is, because it's not printed on your ticket, because it's like it was printed like almost a whole day, 24 hours before the flight, so your gate's not printed on your ticket. So I see that there are flights to Charlotte from gate 30, and that is the furthest gate from the entrance of the terminal that you can possibly get. So I'm like, okay, so it takes about just over half an hour to walk, and it's quite a walk. So doesn't sound like a long walk, but 30 minutes is quite far, especially when you've got a heavy laptop bag on your back and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I get to the gate and I just hang out, you know, I just hang out for a bit, and then it tells me, your gate has been changed to gate 22. So I have to walk the opposite direction, and it takes another 20 minutes to get to gate 22. And I get there, and I overhear someone say that their wife has gotten lost, and she doesn't have her boarding pass with her, and she's not being allowed back into the gate. And they're like, what do you mean she's not being allowed back into the gate? And he said, I have her boarding pass. And they're like, but why would she not be allowed back in? Where did she end up going? And he's like, I don't know, she just called me and said that they're not letting her back in. So what happened, I think, was that this lady went to find a restroom and was let through a wrong door at some point, and then when she tried to get back through, she didn't have her pass, so then they wouldn't let her back in. So anyway, I overhear this, not really thinking it's going to affect us at all. We get on the plane and we get all settled in. We're 15 minutes on the tarmac. And then over the tannoy, the captain says, my apologies to everyone on board, we have to deplane. I'm like, oh my god, really? Probably because the fact that this woman didn't have her boarding pass and was let through a wrong door, that would be on paper a security breach, which is probably why the pilot decided to deplane. So I've never been deplaned before. So in my brain, I'm like, okay, maybe what's going to happen is they'll have us wait back at the actual gate. They'll just offload us and we'll just all like wait there again. No, we have to go through security all over again. Guess where security is? It's at the front door of the terminal, of course. So, you know all that walking I did, which took like half an hour, and then I had to do another 20-minute walk to get to gate 22? Well, guess what I have to do all over again, along with all the other 300 passengers on the plane? Go to the beginning of Terminal 3, go through security all over again, which takes an hour. It took an hour to do all of that all over again. And then by the time we get on the plane, 2 hours have passed. So we're leaving 2 hours later than intended. But guys, it gets even worse. Now, this isn't so bad, but there was turbulence all the way from London to Charlotte. It was the worst flight I have ever been on in that regard. And I don't get travel sick, but I was so sick on this plane because it was just rocking all over the place. And I usually book a seat in the middle of the plane, like near the wing in the middle, so that if there is turbulence, you don't really feel it at that spot. There's a travel tip for you if you are travel sick. Pick a seat that's as close to the wing as possible in the middle of the plane, and then you're less likely to feel the turbulence. But I was on the left side of the plane, and yeah, it was awful. I was also in a middle seat. I didn't get my aisle seat. So yeah, there was that, because I had to rebook it, so then I lost the seat that I had booked. So there was that. Oh my god. It was just a disaster, guys. Like, almost everything that could possibly happen while traveling, apart from a flight being cancelled, like, has happened to me. And touch wood, nothing worse than that will ever happen, but oh my god, it was just so bad. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to have to tell people about this, because people are not going to believe the travel chaos that happens. And it all started because of snow that we have not seen in Scotland for 14 years. Heavy snowfall. Oh my gosh. Wow. So anyway, that was a little story for you guys. So thanks for watching, guys. Let me know if you want more of this kind of content in the comments below. I'm Mad Munchkin. Stay creative.